Hello, my name is Celia Alves. I am a big fan of Power Query. It's hard to choose a favorite feature, but if I have to, maybe unpivot. And this is Power Query magic.
Right, welcome Celia. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Win. It's a pleasure and a great honor. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate everybody who's just sort of sharing this Power Query stuff with the world. I think is doing a good thing. You can rest at ease that you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
So we have to dive straight into your work history. Okay. So go into LinkedIn, scan down people's work history, and there you are, 2002 to 2006 mathematics teacher in Portugal. Then 2007 to 2013 teaching mathematics vocational courses to prisoners. So you've got to just delve into those two. So how's this all started then?
Okay, yeah, you did a good research job. Okay, so my background, my academic background is in mathematics. After debating whether I should go to mathematics or arts, because I like painting, and I have not been painting for a number of years, but that was my dilemma. Should I go to drawing, painting, arts, or mathematics?
Okay.
I just thought that mathematics would be better, easier to put food on my table, so I just went for that. So here I go to become a teacher. High school, I could teach from grade 7 to grade 12. My preparation would allow me, certification would allow me to teach in between that range. And there I go. On my first year as a teacher, I will take the opportunity to put it here that it was when I became acquainted with Excel the first time. On my very first seminar, teacher seminar, the first year as still a trainee teacher, it was a several days conference, and there were several workshops, and one of the workshops I chose happened to be about Excel. This is when I was introduced to Excel the first time.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, I ended up in a school that was responsible to deliver the teaching services to the two prisons in the city. And so one was more for adults, men adults, and the other one also men, but younger ages, in between 17, 18 up to 20 something years old. And yeah, I was one of the lucky ones to selected to go there. And I taught there for 3 or 4 years, or 5, I can't remember, something like that. In between, you said the 2006 to 2013, I think it was.
There wouldn't have been much Excel going on then, though, would there?
I was given a wide topic, and then I could kind of select what I would put in there.
Right.
And I remember that I tried to teach them Excel at some point. It was very confusing.
Were you actually going into the prisons for doing this then?
Yeah.
You're actually in there? Okay.
So yeah, we would come in with our car. It was inspected. In one of them, we also had to go through the metal whatever.
Yeah. Wow.
The first day, I remember very clearly. The first day, in one of the places, in both of them, different but similar in this aspect, we would go through the gates, and then the gates would close behind us. And this was a very intense feeling of, if I need to run, I can't. If I need to run out of here for some reason, for an accident or whatever, I can't. So we were just enclosed there with the students and one guard or two guards, and that's it.
Wow. That's a pretty different backstory to many of us.
One different, for your collection.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you go then from that to the sort of having your own business and things now then?
So I was teaching for all those years, about 19 years, and in 2013 my husband and I decided to come to Canada, from Portugal to Canada. There was a major economical crisis there, and we were just looking for other opportunities. We had a chance to come here. We just took that step.
Yeah.
And we came with our two kids. My husband was the one who had a job offer here, and I came with what's called an open permit, meaning that I could work anywhere where I would find work.
Right.
And it was kind of a difficult transition. I didn't want to start a teacher's career from scratch again, going through all the certifications and all the things. And so I had done that path for 20 years, and I was just ready for something new.
Yeah.
And plus, I didn't feel very comfortable teaching in English. I would have to relearn all the technical stuff in another language. So wasn't very excited about that. I just wanted to do something else, not sure what. And I started as after a few very temporary jobs, I landed a permanent position as administrative assistant to one of the branch directors at the health ministry in the province where I was living in Alberta.
Okay.
And so it was a nice experience because it was when I started to get acquainted with all the corporate environment and again Excel. I remember one day I was in charge of filling in the spreadsheet that the finance department would send us every month for budgeting, so budget for actuals and forecasting and all that. So I would have to enter the numbers, and the director also and asked me to find explanations for those results. So whether it was above or below the budget,
Okay.
to prepare kind of a draft of an explanation that then he would review, of course, and would finalize. And it was in one of those spreadsheets that I saw VLOOKUP for the first time.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So 2015, 14 or 15 only. 14 probably.
Whoa. It's only 7 years ago.
So
Wow.
after 20
Okay.
years of knowing Excel and using it for my teacher's practice and using a bunch of nested ifs.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah, I remember to classify when I was calculating the averages for and the weighted averages for my students based on their different grades in different assignments and tests and all that. We had kind of a 5 or 20 scale of marks. So the scale at the end was the grades were 1 to 5 or 1 to 20 depending on the scale, elementary or high school. And I remember that I was using if this then else.
Yeah.
Because I had never so Excel for me for 20 years was what I learned in that workshop that I went on my first.
Wow.
And okay, I understood this, I'm good with this solves my problem. And I may have done a little bit of research one or twice but I mostly was using just what I learned that day. So imagine 3 or 4 hours. I can't remember if it was a morning and afternoon or just a morning or something period of Excel. And that's what it carried me through 20 years of.
That's all you need. That's all
yeah,
you need.
and the best and the thing about it is I've told this a couple of times. I was feeling like the queen of Excel at my school because I even with just that I was the only one preparing my spreadsheets, coming to the meetings with all my charts and my tables, my count ifs and sum ifs.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, and I still remember discovering that you could turn off the grid lines in Excel after
that
3
came
years.
even later for me.
3 years, 4 years of using it, for in my proper job, whereas I was just making all the cells white. I was filling all the cell backgrounds in white, and then somebody showed me there was a little sort of toggle, and it was just like, oh, brilliant! It's so much genius. So we all sort of learn the hard way, really. I think most of us anyway.
Yeah, and I think it's when you have that moment when you realize that Excel can do virtually anything, and that there must be a way. If you need something, there must be a way. And with all the possibilities that we have now with internet and everything, all the knowledge that is out there, when you realize that you can just search and find, I think that's a crucial moment for any Excel user, because until then you are like I was for 20 years, thinking that Excel is just what you know it is, what you know.
Yes.
And then there was a moment where, oh, there's more, and all I have to do is to be willing to ask questions and to search for answers.
Yeah.
That's what, for me, changes the game for anyone.
And I think for me it was, I was just always learning by just seeing what colleagues were doing. So now, working remotely and things, you lose that element. But like you say, the volume of content these days compared to 15, 20, whatever years ago, that's available just at your click of a button when you search for it. Yeah, it's just, there's no excuse not to have at least make an effort to find. You might find the wrong answer, but you should at least look it up if you.
Yeah, but the thing is that a lot of people have not realized that yet. They are still in the stage where they think that Excel is all they know about Excel. They know how to put in some formulas and maybe some charts or whatever they know, and they think Excel is just that. So they never think of, maybe there's another way of doing this, or maybe I cannot solve it, but maybe there's a way of solving that. So
it's that puzzle thing I think you mentioned as well, Celia. It's that seems to be the sort of common thing. People like solving puzzles, like getting to their solution, a better solution, and Excel can provide that. And I think that seems to be a bit of a common theme, I think.
Yeah.
It's the puzzle solving that people like doing. So how do you end up becoming an Excel MVP then? It's a meteoric rise in the space of sort of like 5 or 6 years.
I asked myself that many times. Yeah, so 2014, 15, I was learning VLOOKUP.
Yeah, totally.
My husband and I were denied the application to renew the permit, and so we had to find another solution. And we were in between, okay, do we stay? Do we go back? We didn't want to go back because it had been just less than 2 years that we were here, having to drag the kids again back, readjusting everything. So we just made the decision to stay and find. There was another puzzle for me to solve. Okay, I went through all the different possibilities. The solution came to be me applying for a study permit.
Okay.
So I went back to school, business administration. Not that I had chosen that. Ended up being very useful now, but there I was, and applied for a job. Got different offers, ended up in one for a bookkeeper's company. This company had a couple of systems already in Excel. It involved a lot of formulas that I didn't know and VBA. And in that process that I mentioned, in between having to drop my job and reapplying for the study permit, and so during that period, we were not authorized to work for an employer here in Canada for 6 months. So I had to I was looking for other types of solutions. Anyways, I ended up starting to work online as a freelancer. And I went, okay, what do I know? I think I know Excel. I was convinced that I knew Excel. So I just went to a freelancers platform and started to apply for Excel gigs jobs, and I got my first one. I offered the guy $5 an hour because I cannot get a job here without a review, and without a review I cannot get so without a review I cannot get a job, without a job I cannot have a review. And I said, okay, I can do this for you. I'll offer this for $5 an hour in exchange of a good review if you end up liking the work that I do. It was for someone in the UK. His job post said, can you do this in Excel? And he explained the problem. It was not a simple problem, but I had just learned VLOOKUP. And I thought, VLOOKUP.
Must be the answer.
Yeah, I can do this. Yeah, so, okay, I got the job. And when I started to try to solve that, I realized that if I was going to use VLOOKUP to solve that, I would have to nest 36 VLOOKUPs and ifs.
Okay.
So that wouldn't work. Okay.
Yeah.
This doesn't work. I said,
Well, no, but see, the good thing is you realised that was a bad idea.
yeah.
That's what sets you apart.
Yeah.
That's where the value is for the client.
Yes, no, on the third pair of parentheses, I realized, no, this is not.
Yeah, it's not going to work. Okay, yeah.
And I said to the guy, well, this is going to take me longer. Oh, that's fine. I'm not so in a rush. So, okay. So I started to search online, and all this world of content started to reveal to me the forums,
Right.
the YouTube channels, VBA, and so on. So that was my first hard experience and deep experience, I would say, with Excel. I ended up solving the problem. The guy was very happy, fulfilled his promise of a very good review, and that's it. So from then, that review, in fact, gave me that job with the bookkeeper's company. She was impressed with the review, and that I showed her, okay, you're hired. And then she showed me her Excel spreadsheets and her systems, and I was, okay, what is this? And she said, okay, so this is what we have, but there's still a lot of manual work. Yeah, so each file would do certain things, but then we would need to transfer information from one file to the other to follow kind of a workflow. And I need you to automate that. Okay. And I had no idea how to do that. So I went home and I would take all my time, all my free and not even free, I would take out of my sleeping time to get up early and start studying. After a while I enrolled in a course from the very basics up to VBA, and it was very important for my learning at that time. And I was learning and applying and learning and applying, and dealing with real problems is what for me works best to be able to learn, when you really have to apply what you are learning to something specific. And so that's it. I was there for about 18 months and automated pretty much everything that they had at that time, including VBA in between Word and Excel. So Power Query was not in the picture at the time.
Yeah.
This was 2016. I have never heard of Power Query. In 2017, I left that company. My job there was pretty much done. I didn't want to be a bookkeeper. So in terms of Excel automation, it was pretty much done. And another guy learned about what I was doing for them and invited me to work for their company, do kind of a similar thing. This company was buying and renting containers. Buying and selling and renting shipping containers, but they were doing everything manually: invoicing, the database, inventory, operations. So again, I was there for about 18 months and automated all that stuff for them. So
you definitely had a bit of a sort of a shine or a knack for this sort of thing then? Did you sort of, again, is it that sort of solving that puzzle and working it out and enjoying
Yeah.
the learning, or finding it stressful, or where do you fall on that sort of
I
spectrum?
like finding the solutions to automate. So, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
I don't consider myself data analyst because I don't like the data analysis thing. I
Yeah.
like what's before that. Okay, here's your data. Now you do the analysis.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
cleaned it up. I automated bringing in the data and putting it all together, creating a data
Yeah.
model, all that. Now analyze it
Is
and
that is that a data engineer? Is that the official title of that? I think data engineer. It
I
probably
don't know.
sounds good.
I just,
I don't know.
I just think it's a Power Query geek or something.
Yeah, yeah, that too.
Yeah, and Power
So
Query came into the scene around that time. I at that
right,
time
yeah,
I was following a couple of YouTube channels. At some point, Oz's channel came up. I
yeah,
started to follow his channel, and he was publishing a lot about Power Query at that time, alerting people to, okay, Power Query seems to do this, but here are some situations where awkward things happen. And I was like, what the heck is this? Because I would see that editor in the screen and I
yes,
didn't know where that was coming from. But I kept watching anyways. And I was, again, kind of gathering puzzle pieces in my mind. And then one day at that company, the owner said, oh, I would like to have a comparison between the sales of this year and last year. And in their case, they had a database for their sales, an Excel file, in fact, for their sales for each year. So each year they would start a new file. And
right,
this
yeah,
was when I realized, oh, data get data from file. I know that. So that was my opportunity to start using Power Query, and that was it.
yeah.
And
Well,
so
you never know when, watching all these things. Sometimes they seem a bit irrelevant, but I found like it could be the next day that thing suddenly becomes useful. You go, oh, that thing I watched last week, or that
yeah,
tweet I saw somebody do,
it
happens
happened
a
to
lot.
me so many times that because sometimes
Yeah.
and it happens also because there's different ways of solving a problem, but if you just watched something the day before or a week ago that can be one of those ways, then you are more inclined to use it. So it has happened to
Yes.
me that a colleague had would ask me, oh, I cannot do this, can you help me here? And I had just watched something the day before that was explained.
Yeah.
And then I look like this wizard that knows everything. That's just because I had
Yeah.
watched that. Yeah. So you had asked me how I became an MVP. So this is
Yeah.
at this point. Okay, I'm working for this company. I'm starting to realize I really enjoy this Excel developer thing. The other day, I had a conversation with a recruiter that found me on LinkedIn, and he said, oh, it's very interesting that you present yourself as an Excel developer. I never see people. Well, that's what I am. I'm not a data analyst or business analyst or whatever. I think what I am is this. Anyways,
Yeah.
so, and at this point, I was kind of in, okay, my plan had been, since I had left my job in the government, to go back to a corporate job. And at this point, I started to see, well, there's demand for this type of work that I do. I started to get invitations from the freelancers platform that I was still using to do jobs on the side. And and I was trying to get into corporate jobs, and I realized that it was quite difficult for recruiters to pay attention to my curriculum. So I have a licentiate, I think it's how you call it here, degree from Portugal, and a master's degree. It's equivalent to a bachelor's and 2 masters here in America. And I have
Okay.
all this experience with Excel and all that, but there's not a fancy certificate name for this type of experience. So they would see
Yeah.
me either as a teacher, be in front of a blackboard or a whiteboard in front of a class teaching mathematics, or I don't know. And Excel, a lot of people, even the recruiters, they don't know the power it has and what it can do for companies. So I found myself struggling to convince recruiters to even consider me for all these analysts, like business analysts, HR analysts, all this type, that they are mostly Excel work.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, well, I don't want to keep spending my time running after these things for nothing, wasting my time. I'm just going to sit here and do what I like. And job inquiries started to come, and then once I commit to them, then even if they are not full-time, I cannot suddenly say to the client, I cannot do this because now I'm going to full-time. So anyways, I ended up establishing myself as a self-proprietor, as a contractor, and started my work from home.
Yeah, wow.
And but that can become quite lonely sometimes, quite how do you say, lonely? Is it
Yeah.
And because I speak with people every day from all different places in the world, but I am at home. At some point I felt, well, I need to connect with people around here. And I had moved from Alberta to Toronto, to Ontario, where I am now. And so I didn't know anyone. So I started to search online, and I think I looked for Excel events or something like that, because at this point I became acquainted with the Brazilian Excel community, which they are a bunch of people there with many different YouTube channels, and they seem to have a great connection and a great networking there. And I thought, well, let me see what's going on here. I found a meetup group about Power BI, Power Apps, and Flow. That was the name of the meetup group at that time. It is ran by Vivek Patel and Ashraf Ghonaim. They are both MVPs. And I started to go there just for the fun of getting out of the house, meeting other people. I didn't know what Power Apps was. I thought, these Power Apps, maybe it's Power Query and something else. That's what I thought. This was 2017, I think, or 18.
Okay.
And yeah, so I started attending those events. Great stuff happening there, a lot of great content. And yeah, and at some point I was chatting with Ashraf, and I was saying, oh, I wish there was something like this for Excel here. There's nothing about Excel, and we don't have anything. And he said, why don't you create one then? Just create the meetup group then, if you want one.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, fair enough. So that's what I did. I said, okay, I want to meet people, chat with people about Excel, learn from each other, have a kind of every month just get together with different professionals, like-minded people, and see what we get from there, and we can share.
Yeah.
So yeah, I invited other people to join me as in the organization of that meetup group, and we started it in May 2019.
Okay.
And around that time,
were there many people at the first session?
First session was about 30 people.
Oh wow, okay.
This is what caused this work with the meetup, and also I started to present at several events around that time, around 2000, end of 2019. I posted that I was going to speak in 2020. So I went to speak in Brazil 2020 in January, just before the pandemic started, in person there at the Excel event.
Oh, yeah.
6.
Yeah.
And with that, people just started to pay attention to what I was doing, and Vivek Patel said, I want to nominate you for MVP. I said, what? No, I don't think. I mean, because for me to be an MVP, you would have to have a huge YouTube channel or a blog, and I had both of them, but they were not huge, very tiny.
Yeah.
I had like 100 or 200 subscribers or something like that. And not much more than that now. I'm around 3,000 or so. So I thought, okay, if you think so, he was so sure that I would get the award. Okay, if you are so sure, let's try that. But I wasn't very convinced. and that's it. So
I
that's
think
how it all happened.
I think it's I think the MVP award is a case of just going, people who are making the effort and who are, I think as well, different stories, different backgrounds of people. Microsoft want feedback from a broad range of folks with broad ranges of backgrounds and experiences and user experiences and stuff like this. And if those people, ourselves, etc., are contributing back to the community and sort of showing that we're willing to share our knowledge and all that sort of stuff, that's where the MVP award comes from, and what makes it so fun that there's all these different people from all over the place with all different crazy stories like your background and stuff. So
And and different ways of contributing, right? A lot of people,
Totally.
they do an amazing work on forums, just helping one by one,
Yeah.
one by one, this question, this question, this question. They are there
Yeah.
daily answering sometimes difficult questions, and nobody knows about them because they don't have that exposure of having a big YouTube channel or a big blog. But
Absolutely.
they do meaningful and great work just helping people on those
Yeah.
forums.
If you going on, are you on any? Do you go on any forums these days?
Not really. Just because I don't have time, and because of that, I avoid going. Because if I see those questions, this is interesting. How would
Yeah.
I solve this? And then I realize I lost one of my one business day of payable billable hours that just to help
Yeah.
someone solving that
I
their problem.
get sucked in before breakfast sometimes, or in the evenings and things as well, and it's just like, I've got onto Reddit now. That's where I'm sort of just scanning through answers. It's quite a nice platform to just scan through an answer. So that's where I am. I go on to the Excel tech community now and again, but our friend Sergey has probably answered
Yeah.
the question already.
Sergey is always
He's amazing. He's
ahead
amazing
of
getting in there and
everyone.
answering the question.
Yeah.
Awesome. So is there any sort of particular bits, now you're sort of you're doing sort of more on Power Query and focus in that area? Are there any sort of use cases or scenarios that have really been impactful that you've seen, or any favorite parts of it?
Well, Power Query is really a favorite old thing, right? It's
Yeah.
just how, and I was very in love and still am with VBA, for example. So I love programming. Now knowing what I know, I probably should have gone through some kind of computer science or some kind of more programming oriented academic
Yeah.
program. But at that time, like I said, I barely knew what a computer was. So anyways, I had no idea what we could do with that. And so that solving problems is, like I mentioned, what I enjoy, and I like programming. But the beauty of when I started to use Power Query, I stopped using VBA for anything that Power Query can do. And now my solutions end up having both. So, okay, here comes Power Query, and then at the end we need to generate a bunch of different PDFs, or we need to send out emails, or I need to export a CSV file. Anyways, all that output work is almost every time there's a piece of VBA involved there. I have started with Power Automate, but nothing significant done with it yet. And the use scenarios end up having some similarities. So every time someone has to deal with the same type of report every week, every month, every day that involves the same steps, that we need to bring in information and we need to combine these different pieces of data and then produce something at the end, either in Excel or outside Excel. This is where Power Query has a very important role.
Do you find that just clients have everybody's working from dumps of CSVs and Excel files and keying stuff in. Is that still the most common
Oh yeah,
scenario?
yeah.
Just terrible Excel
And
CSV data.
yeah, and then a number of VLOOKUPs, index and matches, and carrying the formulas down, not knowing what a table is in Excel. I have clients, big corporations with a bunch of analysts, full-time employees. Their job titles are data analysts or business analysts, HR analysts. And they keep doing the same thing. They don't use Excel tables. It's just copy pasting, and VLOOKUP, index and match, and then reports that point to a cell on a pivot table, but not with get pivot table, just with that specific cell. And then the next time they refresh the pivot table, and they need to go and adjust all the formulas because the cells now, the values are in different cells or different rows. And I mean, I try to let's say, well, maybe there's other ways of doing it, and maybe you should invest some time exploring it. But if people are not willing to put in that effort, they won't, because they just say, okay, this is what they pay me to do, this is my 9 to 5 job, I'll do whatever they ask me, that's it, I go home. So everyone is different. In my case, I'm very curious, and if I know there's something out there that I need to discover, I'm not lay down on the sofa watching TV. I'm searching it. But that's me. I mean, not everyone has the same type of curiosity or interest, so they just do other things that I don't do. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's that curiosity level is key to this this whole thing. And I think when these new tools come along, there is that thing of people just do stuff the way they've always done it, and just they're not doing anything wrong. They just never question that there might be a better way of doing it. It's just like, well, this is what happens and it works. Yeah. So why bother with any other approach?
Good enough.
But for me, I'm always just like chomping at the bit to, I'll easily waste 5 hours learning something new way of doing something that I could have done in 10 minutes, because I'm thinking, I'm doing this 10 minutes all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't want to do this 10 minutes all the time. I want to just do it once, get it right, and then I know, click a button.
And then you are free to solve something else.
The next problem comes along, waste some more time. So I've done Power Query things where I could have just easily retyped something.
Yeah.
And I've just gone, I wonder what the technique is for doing this. And then I've ended up, searching, going down a rabbit hole of 4 or 5 different YouTube channels and trying to find an answer and go, that's probably the cleverest way of doing that. And just so much to learn. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you were saying, so your blog and your YouTube channel and stuff, so you kicked that off a couple of years ago then?
Yeah, the YouTube channel started around 2016 maybe.
Okay.
But it was kind of dormant for a long time. It still is sometimes for a number of weeks or months when I cannot put in anything. And the blog, when I created my company, my business, I created a website and I had the blog there. And again, it takes a lot of time to put in a good article. So I have a couple prepared to review and then post, but I just keep postponing it. You mentioned to me the other day as well that you're doing some live sessions, live classes and things now. Yeah.
So is that just kicked off? Or?
I've been trying a couple of things on this YouTube, with YouTube. One of the things, I was following this different digital marketing course, something, and one of the strategies they propose is, instead of you preparing and recording and editing something, a topic, you can just go live, deliver the class about that. And then you can use that long video and if there is kind of a topic in the middle that can be cut out and leave as a video as a outside of the context, so that's just that one tip, then we can reuse that big video and produce more smaller videos out of that. But it's quite difficult, challenging in terms of time because of the editing. I mean, then the editing of those pieces is not just cut from here, from there to there, because in the middle I may say, oh, okay, let me see this question. Oh, hello, nice to see you. Because I am on a live class, right? And so I then have to cut that out of that piece. So, so I've been running a couple of lives, and I prepare, and ideally it should be 30 minutes, but very easily they go 1 hour and a half, 2 hours of live classes. So I don't even know if people then go there and watch that because it's so long.
And things are changing, you know, so quick now. There's so many new features and things like this. How are you? Where are you going to sort of keep up to date, or what's your technique?
Well, for a while, for a long time, and still now, I pay attention to a few YouTube channels, and especially YouTube channels. I was going to say blogs as well, but to tell the truth, I don't go to blogs on purpose most of the times. But I just keep my eye on posts on LinkedIn. Then now being an MVP, of course, we have access to information ahead of time when things are about to come up, and we get the opportunity to help with testing. And so that's pretty much my go-to. And in fact, at the moment I find myself not having a lot of time to explore and learn as much as I would like. At the moment is mostly learning what I need to solve the projects I have at hand.
That is full-time plus in itself, isn't it? You know, but like even the other day, I think there was, you know, we're part of this sort of email list with the MVPs and the Microsoft team and stuff, and the Excel team. And I think you raised this thing about validation lists, and you said it'd be lovely if you could get unique items to show up. You know, you can select a whole column, but only the unique items will show up in the validation list if you refer to it. And I think about like 2 months later, that was actually in the beta channel.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's crazy how quick some of this stuff can happen.
Yeah, sometimes it may be a coincidence, or maybe just they didn't thought of that, or they didn't thought it was important. So that's a very good one. Yeah,
just that whole user voice sort of, or what's it called now, feedback portal, all these ideas being thrown at the Excel team and things. It's is there anything in particular, is there anything on there sort of, I guess Power Query wise especially, that any sort of new features or things that are broken or would be good to have that you've
there's certainly a lot, and since that the user voice was replaced, I haven't participated much in this platform. I don't know why. I just kind of lost the track of it. And
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I haven't jumped in there as actively as I was in the other one, but I took notes. So just in Power Query, for example, let us be in Power Query and in Excel at the same time. We can do that in Power BI, but we cannot do that in Excel, right?
Yeah,
and it's very annoying. So what it would be great too is if we could have a way of kind of solving that. What's that called? It's the create a step and it goes back and computes all over again. Since
that referencing
since when you even just sometimes you just do a step like change data type. And it stays there forever, computing that next step preview on Power Query Editor, because it goes back to the source and brings it all back, recalculates all the steps until then. And it takes forever. There's a couple of techniques. Ken Pulse has this staging step table technique and other techniques to go around that. But it would be just... And buffer sometimes helps, but not always. So
Yeah, I think there's such a broad audience of people that are just bringing in small files and stuff like this. And if you could just say, look, just bring it in and just store it in memory.
yeah,
It won't work for massive files, but I think there must be a huge audience that are just dealing with, a couple of megabytes of data,
yeah.
100,000 rows, 200,000 rows
If you could
tops.
just pin a step and say, okay, up to here, I'm good.
Yeah. Load.
Don't
Yeah.
go back. If you are computing and you reach the step,
Yeah.
just keep it and don't go back.
Well, so one of the reasons that I've sort of got, in certain circumstances now, got into data flows as well, because it could be, we had a horrible sort of scenario with the client had some old accounting system, was online, and every time you just changed a step, it would just churn. So just pulled that data into a data flow,
Okay.
and then worked off that. And then once we needed to go live, we could either point back or just have the data flow refresh overnight. It was a much nicer experience, but hopefully that sort of scenario comes a bit more available to Excel
Yeah, so
users
that's
now.
a good idea. So the data flow ends up working as a staging thing. So you just
Yeah.
bring that first phase is there, okay, it's here and now. And then you continue from there into Excel or Power BI?
Well, Power BI in the past, but now it's available, and there's a button in the insider channel for data flows, but you can also type, what is it, PowerPlatform.Data, something like that, brackets null or something. I'll put a link in the notes, can't remember what it is now. But you can do that in the current channel, I think. And the channel, right, so you're dealing with lots of different clients. How do you handle the different channels and different versions of Excel people have got? Does it come up as a problem or not?
Yeah, I pretty much worry about if they are using Microsoft 365 or not. That's the first step. Then the
Yeah.
channels, so far I haven't had problems. I have one machine working on the beta channel and the other one is just a current monthly channel. So far I haven't had big
issues with
problems. I just need to pay attention when they are using, for example, 2016, which a lot of companies still are, or 2019,
Yeah.
that I know, oh, okay, I cannot go with these formulas because they are not
Yeah,
available
can't
there.
throw an X lookup in there.
Yeah, dynamic arrays.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
other than that,
yeah.
it's challenges are funny sometimes related to versions, because sometimes people, they come to me saying that they use Excel, blah blah blah. Okay, and when I come to realize they are using Google Sheets, but for them it's Excel. So I'm
Okay.
imagining a solution, and then okay,
Yeah,
yes, we
yeah,
have a problem now.
yeah.
So yeah,
Have you used much Google Sheets?
not much.
I haven't.
And almost all the clients that come with Google Sheets, they just say, okay, I just changed to Microsoft 365. Most of the times, and there's situations where their company runs on the Google Suite because there's Gmail and other communication and tools that they use for them. But then for this particular solution, they just, because it's just one or two people having to deal with it, they just buy a license, Microsoft 365 license, and they work with it on their desktop, and just makes their life easier. Sometimes I do have to connect Power Query to Google Sheets files.
Okay. How's that work? Is that okay?
Yeah, there's a little trick that we need to, I have a video about that. It's you get the URL from the file, but then at the end there's a little tail in the URL that says edit blah blah blah. You need to replace that with something XLSX or something like that, and that will make the file be recognized as almost an Excel file.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and you cannot have the file, so it needs to be shared as anyone with a link can access, or otherwise you will not. So it's not published on the web. It's not the same thing, because that would make the file kind of public, but it's like when you share something with a link with someone.
Yeah.
It needs to be like, at least that's the way I know how to connect it. I'm not sure if there's other ways, but that's the way I do it.
There's the sooner they fix the sort of connecting to a file on OneDrive as well, they'll be making that easier, because it's just painful now.
Yeah.
That definitely needs fixing. So. Anyway, I'm not going to moan about it. We love Power Query. So, okay, so time for the little game called Just a Minute. So here we go. It's 60 seconds, and we're going to talk on the topic of text transformations. So anything to do with Power Query and text. So the topic can be, you know, what sort of things you can do with it, what features you can use, any scenarios you can think of that you might use it. So basically either you start talking or I start talking, but then if either of us repeat ourselves, and we repeat ourselves by saying anything other than text transformations or Power Query, they're allowed. But if we repeat, the other person buzzes in and takes over, and whoever's speaking at the end of 1 minute is the winner. Okay?
Okay.
So, do you have a preference of whether you go first or second? Do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
I'll look very quickly,
So
so be prepared to jump in.
Yeah. So I'm listening out for you saying repetitive words or big pauses or saying
Oh, I do.
Okay, so it's a bit
all the
harsh,
time.
especially so like your English second language. You're not speaking English at home, are you? Or are you?
Well, no. Portuguese. My kids answer back in English. I talk to them in Portuguese.
Yeah.
That's-
So I've automatically got an advantage. So I'm really cheating here.
yeah.
And I've played this game a few times before, so I should be getting better. So
Okay. Good
we'll
luck.
see where we get to. Okay, so you're gonna start.
Yeah, I can.
Talking about anything to do with text and transformations in Power Query. Okay, on your marks, get set, go.
Okay, text transformations are extremely useful because it helps you a great deal with cleaning data. So for example, if you have to deal with data that was entered manually and people are not consistent with it, even just with the casing of the words, sometimes uppercase, lowercase, and so on, because Power Query is sensitive.
Or buzz case. Oh no, uppercase and low. Is uppercase one word? Carry on. Carry on.
So you can use text transformations, those particular functions in Power Query to help you make your data more uniform.
Or definitely buzzing in now. You've said data
Okay.
twice. Definitely said data.
So carry on.
Data is probably the easiest one. You did well. 44
Oh
seconds.
wow! So now I'm going to lose because 1 minute will be and you'll be there.
Well, let's see. Okay, so my favorite example of using text transformations is column from examples, where you can right click on a column, say column from examples, type in
Column, for example,
the word.
multiple times in column.
Oh, 58 seconds. 58 seconds. So 2 seconds remaining.
I don't like. I'm very reticent of.
1 minute up,
Yeah.
you won, and you said a big at 1 minute 1 second.
I was going to say I avoid that function a lot, that feature, by example,
Okay.
because it gives me kind of it steals from me that sense of control. I don't know what Power Query is doing, although we can look at the code, right, and see what's going on
Yes. I am with you if I don't understand the code. I say to people, if you don't understand that formula, that the Power Query is generated kindly for you, then, you're taking your risk
there.
that it's not going to do what you want it to do. But that's why I prefer it to, what's it called, in Excel? Oh, I've had a brain blank. Flash fill.
Yeah.
Because flash fill doesn't tell you what it's
Yeah.
doing. And it's a one-off as well, so I guess it's okay. But yeah, column from examples, I know what you mean. But yeah, text transformation.
If it is a one-time thing that you need to do, and if it's not massive data, too big of a data set, and you can kind of check it, or if it's not too severe that a couple of mistakes happen there, it's all about the context, right?
Yeah, use it in the right space and be aware of what the risks are, I think, is the trick.
True.
Okay, anything else to talk about? Where's people find you? Where's the best place for them to come across you?
LinkedIn for sure. Celia
Yeah.
Alves Solvent Excel or Celia Alves Solve Excel. It's on YouTube. Solvent Excel is my website, and then all the other social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter, Solvent Excel. On Facebook and Instagram, Solvent Excel. On Twitter, I am Celia Excel. But so people can find me pretty much anywhere, but LinkedIn and YouTube is where I am most active.
Yeah. I'll put links as well in the
Thank
show
you.
notes. I also like to ask my guests if they've had any brushes with fame. Have you ever met any famous people? Are you related to any famous people? Got any famous stories?
In our world of Excel. Yeah, and not that I
Whichever,
know a
in the
lot of,
real world.
not that I know famous people outside, but anyways, I remember I'll always keep these memories of when I met Ken Pauls the first time,
Right.
2018 on the what's that, the Ignite event by Microsoft here in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
It was around that time where I was just trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here in Toronto? What is there about Excel? And I was, okay, there's this event. I was just starting to go to that meetup group that I mentioned before. And he was so kind. I mean, he's such a generous person. We chatted for a long time at that time. I think he mentioned that at that time I should apply to MVP. And what kind of a weird idea. It was, in fact, I think it was 2019 already. I also met Marco Russo and Alberto Ferrari, one at a time, not the two of them together. They both came to speak at that same meetup group for Power BI that I mentioned.
Oh, right.
And particularly that session by Marco Russo, he introduced me. In 1 hour, he made me understand the concept of the star schema. And that was crucial to know, okay, I need to pay attention to certain things, and this is how it should be done. And so again, just having that seed, and then we can search and look for more and try to understand better. But that session is, and again, it's so important, these community sessions, free sessions for whoever wants to attend. And sometimes they can be just so important for one particular person in the audience.
Yeah.
And they were such nice guys. They are such nice guys and generous people as well. So I had the opportunity to chat with both of them at the end of the session. So
great.
Those three at least.
Yeah. Very good.
In person.
And the other one I ask people is around whether you've had any sort of terrible presentation moments, things that have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah. On when I started running those live sessions, it was exhausting. And there was one time, it was exhausting because I was so worried about what people would say, and what if something does not go right when you're running a demo, and you know how Excel is. And one day I had set up my Excel to work in Portuguese because I had to record a video in Portuguese about Visio, the Visio add-in in Portuguese that Microsoft, I was an MVP already, they asked me for that tutorial. Okay. I set that up and recorded the video, then I put it back to English. But then I forgot that I also had changed the decimal separators. Because in Portuguese, comma is for decimal separator, and then the formulas need to work with a semicolon or semicolon, because the comma is for the numbers, not to separate arguments.
Right. Okay.
So I forgot to put that back. I changed the language back to English, and I was running this live. I believe I was talking about tables, and then trying to demonstrate formula expanding down the table. I think it was that. Anyways, I was trying to write a VLOOKUP function, and the parameters would just not come up because I would put comma, and it was expecting a
Right.
semicolon.
Oh no.
And I was so nervous at some point. Why is this not working? And I was like, yeah, that was one. And the other one that I also remember was went to participate on a live chat with the recruiter. He runs different live topics on his YouTube channel and on LinkedIn. And he invited me to speak about Excel. And okay, so I prepared a demonstration about automation, Power Query, and then VBA. But I had this brilliant idea of, in the middle of the presentation, to show something else that just occurred to me at that time. And I said, "Oh, we could also do this." And I switched the order of the columns on my Power Query table, just because I just decided that at that moment. And then when it came the part of VBA, it wouldn't work because there was a step with filtering a table, and the columns, the code has the number of the column by which the criteria needs to be applied, to which the filtering criteria needs to be applied. And so those columns were switched. So it wouldn't work.
Never change partway through presentation. Stick
yeah,
on
that
plan.
was my lesson. No new ideas during the presentation. Just stick with what you prepared. So I couldn't figure out, and the presentation was in this mood of, we have this just short time. So it was very in a hurry. I couldn't think. So I just said, you have to believe me, it was working.
Trust me, it works. And we also ask people to leave their sort of two articles or blog posts or videos. So the most popular one or one of the most popular ones and their favorite one. So what have you got?
The most popular one, because of that video that I just mentioned that I had to record in Portuguese, I had to switch the display language in Excel to Portuguese. I didn't know how to do that. I had to search and find how to do that. And at the end I said, I better just record the video for myself about this, because next time I need this, I don't know. I'll have to research it all over again. And I have a video and a blog post. That's the most popular one since then.
Right. Yeah.
It's what apparently people are looking to. How do I change my language, display language in Excel? So it's nothing to do with Power Query or VBA or anything like that.
No.
And
then your favorite
one? The favorite one, I think probably one of the tips that I have given a couple of times that people usually are not aware about, the enable background refresh tick mark on Power Query. So for example, when we load a table from a query, and then we build a pivot table from that Power Query table, and then when you do refresh, you need to refresh twice, because the first time the table updates but not the pivot table, and then finally the pivot table updates. And usually that can be solved if you go to your query, and on the properties there's enable background refresh, that by default is marked on, and if you take that check mark off, then it makes that the pivot table will wait for the table first to be updated, and then the pivot table runs, and so one click only will update both.
Tip.
And in fact, one of the things I had here on my list that I would like Power Query to have is that check mark would become off by default instead of on, because it is very rarely that I want that on. I usually have to go through all the queries and turn that off.
Yeah, and certainly made more obvious as well, rather than hidden away in some...
Or at least give us the option of whether or not we want that on by default.
Yeah.
But I have a blog
No,
post about
nice one.
that. I think I refer people to that quite often because that's something that comes on a couple of times. It also helps with
Yeah.
when you have VBA. So let's say you have a code that says refresh this query, and after you have your table loaded, copy the table and paste it somewhere else because maybe you want a CSV file or something out of that.
Yes.
The VBA will go faster than the query to refresh. So when VBA is copying and pasting something that is not updated yet, and but
Yeah.
unchecking that check mark with VBA does not always work. Sometimes it does solve this problem, but other times I haven't figured out why
Okay.
it doesn't.
Interesting. Because I think I have used that technique a while back. But yeah. Okay. But no, that's a good tip for people because it's a pretty common one, that, isn't it? That people need that to happen. How do I stop it running? So I'll definitely put links to both those in the show notes. So awesome. Thank you, Celia.
Thank you too.
And the last little one here is, I'm stranding you on a desert island. Okay, it can be a pleasant island, you know, but there's nobody else there. And you're allowed one object, but it must begin with M in honor of Power Query's M language. So, any ideas? What would you take?
Well, M language, or linguagem M, which is a translation to Portuguese, is still M.
Okay.
So I'm going to cheat and I'm going to choose a Portuguese word, which was the
Right.
very first thing that came to mind when I heard that, read the question, and that is mantinha or manta. Mantinha is kind of when you want to say a little object, kind of a diminutive for a word. Manta.
Okay.
Manta is a blanket.
Ah.
I have my blanket on my lap all year long around because my office is in the basement, so it tends to get cold, especially in the floor because it's I'm touching concrete, and then
Yeah.
beneath that
Okay.
there's ice. I'm guessing during the winter and maybe not now, but it's cold, and but even in the sofa when I go to the living room, even on the summer, I just feel like putting that cozy
Just you
blanket on top of me.
need the cozy blanket in those cold desert island nights. You can just have your blanket on you with a fire going.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I
beautiful.
think that if I
Okay.
couldn't bring my family and an object, I need that for my
No.
emotional and physical comfort.
Granted. Granted. All right. Awesome. Really enjoyed the chat, Celia. Thanks for coming on the
Thank
show.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Will. Win. It
And
was such a pleasure. Such a pleasure to meet,
yeah,
to
nice
have
to
the
chat.
opportunity to chat with you for this time, because it's always in a rush that we have the opportunity to communicate other times. Um,
Yeah. I'm hoping we can have sort of like an in-person summit again in the next year
yeah,
or two. And if touch wood, we're still MVPs and still
yeah.
around, then yeah, it'd be nice to catch up with everybody again
You
one
were
day.
very, very helpful when I became an MVP. You were one of the people reaching out if you need help to get around, let me know. So thank you for that.
Oh, no
Very kind.
worries. I remember what it's like. I sort of remember walking actually at the first summit, walking into the sort of the first room that we were in at the Microsoft thing, and sort of seeing, you know, Oz and then Ken and then Bill Jelen and sort of a few other people dotted around, and just going, okay, where do I sit? You know, I'm the new kid sitting at the back somewhere. So yeah, it's nice to sort of just be welcomed in, and everybody has been super welcoming for me.
I
So
haven't had that luck yet. The
glad to
closest
share that.
experience I had to that was watching all those names flowing into my email inbox, right after I subscribed
Yeah, yeah.
to the NDA list. And what? What are they?
It is good. It is good. So no, so thank you very much once again, and yeah, keep sharing the magic with
Thank you.
people,
You
and we'll
too.
catch you later
You
on.
are doing such a great job with all your videos, and I have some of them on my tutorials list. I refer back to them every now and then. So thank you very much.
Good. Pleasure. Thanks, Celia. Catch you
Thank
later
you.
on.
Bye bye.